The Oscars may be in March, but award season officially begins tomorrow with our second annual Peacockies. We announced the biggest fantasy winners of the season, and the best part is our viewers will once again be able to cast their vote with the QR code right here. Tune in at our usual time, noon Eastern time on Peacock. And yes, Matthew is back for the Peacockies. Weekend Warriors, headlined by James Conner, 26 carries, Lawrence, 128 yards and a touchdown. And it helps, he chipped in 1 5-yard touchdown reception as well.
204 yards from scrimmage. That's big. That's his most since week 8 of 2018. And speaking of Matthew Berry, shout out to him who had James Conner at running back 2. He finished as running back 1 this week. He's got his first career season with 1,000 rush yards. They said they're bringing back Kyler Murray. He's their franchise quarterback, and I think they'll run him back with James Conner too. He had a strong finish to the end of the season.
I mean, he's been a monster. I mean, he finished the season the last 2 weeks with 337 scrimmage yards and 3 touchdowns to boot. He finishes as PFF's 5th best running back of the season. I mean, he missed that time, but I mean, he's been a monster, and he's been one of the best running backs in football, which didn't necessarily see. So I think we thought that this Arizona offense would just kind of submarine everyone, and the thought of being able to have a running back who would be able to score was going to be difficult, and they'd always been throw scripts, but Conner has been magnificent all year.
A guy you were backing, as you were talking about, Lawrence, going into the weekend, Breece Hall, 37 carries in a game we didn't know if the Jets would manage Breece's workload, meaningless game, besides draft position. The Jets gave him 37 carries for 178 yards and a touchdown, sending Bill Belichick off with a brutal, lifeless loss in Foxborough in the snow.
Yeah, shout out to Breece Hall, career high. Not only did they not, rest him, he had a career high 39 touches. He was my running back 1 for the week, finished RB2, 178 yards on the ground alone. You see him there sliding in the snow there. And, when it comes to Breece Hall, to see what he was able to do this season with the quarterback troubles that the Jets had, with the offensive line troubles that they had, it just lets you know that going into the 2024 fantasy season, when you're about to have your drafts, this is a guy that should be at the top of your list. I spoke yesterday on the pregame show about Anthony Richardson being my favorite player to draft next season. Breece Hall is a very close second, because I thought he would, get these numbers through the dink and duck pass game. He ran through this top 3 New England Patriots run defense, so he just put on tape something to look forward to for the future.
Yep, and seems like his knee's okay. He's getting 37 carries, no concerns about workload. But Connor, what are you saying from Breece this year in terms of in terms of sheer talent of running backs the past 10, 15 years? Where does he stack up? Because he has to be up there.
Right. He's 220 pounds. He runs a 4.3, and he's got some of the best vision in football, and he's hard to tackle. So when you factor in all those things with the fact that he can pass, protect, and catch the ball, he never has to come off the field.
Yeah.
That was it yesterday. Yeah. And the Jets will no Dalvin Cook next year. So Breece, I'm with you, Lawrence. In fantasy, the value is insane on Breece. And he'll probably go so far that there won't be any value. Like, people will be taking
it ain't going to be.
Third, fourth.
Because it's clear. It's like CMC, Breece Hall, and Kyron Williams.
Yep.
Those are 3 guys that are going to get the lion's share of their team's backfield touches.
Yep, Jonathan Taylor as well. He might
Jonathan Taylor.
Although here's the other thing with just Richardson vulturing touchdowns would be the one thing with JT.
Yeah. Well, that's what's so interesting, Jay. Breece had 9 touchdowns this season, plenty of them through the air. He only had 2 carries inside the 5.
Yeah.
Ooh, that is something. And
look,
Aaron Rodgers ain't vulturing no touchdowns away.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. No, sky's the limit for Breece. And we kind of forget about it, but last year he would have been the runaway offensive rookie of the year if he didn't get hurt. And he is, just in terms of sheer talent, to me, he looks like, Adrian Peterson, these type of guys who are historic guys, and Breece obviously has more to do before he can get concretely mentioned in those conversations. But in terms of sheer talent, he's right there.
Another guy you could say the same exact thing about, Jay, is Bijan Robinson. He'll have a new coach, probably have a different quarterback, and he'll probably be the most featured guy in this offense with Arthur Smith gone.
Yeah, the beauty of Bijan is yesterday in his stat line, he has 11 carries for 28 yards and is still dominant because of 103 yards and a touchdown through the air. So I think he'll be a monster next year, properly weaponized.
How about Joe Mixon, Lawrence? 21 carries, 65 yards. He also caught a touchdown. I mean, Joe Mixon, kind of an interesting guy because we don't know the future of the Bengals backfield next year, but Mixon still proven to be a workhorse back when you need him to be.
Yeah, and before the season, he took a little pay cut to remain with the team. He figured that was his best option, and in the running back landscape and how you get paid, it was a good decision for him. Nice to see him in the season, 14 carries, 111 yards, a touchdown. Like you said, had another receiving touchdown. What'll be interesting, though, is that contract situation. You got to Chase Brown, who's made some plays, and he's not on a rich contract, so keep an eye out for that.
Shout out to you, Jay. You actually were always right about Najee Harris. You just had to wait till week 17 and 18 for back-to-back 20-plus fantasy points, 100-plus rushing yards. And a game the Steelers had to have to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking before about Adrian Peterson. You know, you mentioned LaDainian Tomlinson. Najee Harris is in that discussion as well, one of the best football players I've ever seen. No, but he was really good against the Ravens, and he's quietly, he started the season as a punchline, and now all of a sudden he's turned around and had a really solid season, and looked like he was going to be benched for Jaylen Warren, and Warren was going to be the guy, but I mean, Najee is still the workhorse in that backfield, and he salvaged the season.
A guy that was kind of a punchline in the middle of the season, but finished strong, Lawrence. Derek Carr, 22 of 28, 264 yards, 4 touchdowns. As we look at the Week 18 fantasy leaders at quarterback, it's topped by Derek Carr.
Quarterback one. Wow. 5th straight game with 2 or more touchdown passes, 20-plus fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games. Like you said, Connor, he was the punchline. It started to become a point where, hey, should we get Jameis Winston in here in his quarterback victory touchdowns? They didn't make the Saints don't make the playoffs, but nice finish for him that could kind of validate him going forward.
Can't do Weekend Warriors this week without talking about Puka Nacua. He only catches 4 passes for 41 yards and a touchdown because that's all he needed to set the NFL rookie records for receptions, which I believe was a 63-year-old record, or the yards one was. The yards was a 63-year-old record. A fella named Bill Groman held that.
Very familiar with Bill's
Yes.
work. One of the greats.
Puka Nacua, 5th-round pick, and now the greatest rookie receiving season we've ever seen, guys.
Yeah. I just love that Kyle Shanahan was triple teaming him for a stretch of the game. You're not
getting this
You
on
are coming
us.
out for the second half, Puka.
I would have liked that they would have tried a little more. It didn't work. But shout out to him. He deserves it. He carried it when Cooper Kupp wasn't around. So yeah, it's nice.
Yep.
And go ahead, Jay.
I was going to say, it's one of the best stories of the season. No one knew who this guy was in the preseason. For him to have this type of season, I mean, he finishes with more receiving yards than A.J. Brown. Like, it's insane. I think he finishes 3rd in the league. It's an incredible season, and credit to him.
He's a 2nd-round pick in fantasy next year.
And he would be, in any other year, he would be the runaway offensive rookie of the year. It's just, he's, the savior. C.J. Stroud is also in the mix, unfortunately, for him.
In one of the funnier, more interesting incentive moments, Chris Jones gets his 10th sack of the season, which qualified him for $1.25 million in incentives. Jones spoke after the game on kind of tormenting Easton Stick.
I told him, go down and you won't have to play against him? No, I told him, I'm going to keep chasing your ass until I get my half. He was like, I know. I was like, I'm going to get your ass too. But I was telling him he's been a warrior all year, dealing with his current situation, being thrown in the fire. And, at the end of the season, could your quarterback go down, and you've done an excellent job so far, man. So keep it up. I'm a huge fan.
That was Chris Jones, who that's a big check there, Lawrence, incentives-wise. I'd be chasing down Easton Stick, too, if I had over $1 million in the line.
And, at least, Easton Stick kind of made him work for it. He gave up there because
celebration's amazing.
Yeah. Shout out to him for getting that money, man.
That's incredible.
Shout out to Easton Stick, too, to realizing he was going to get sacked anyway. Just go down, let that man get his money. Maybe Chris Jones break you off a couple of dollars, too.
Yeah.
I actually did the same exact thing when my Texans plus 460 division bet cashed. Exact same reaction as Chris Jones. No, good for him. Good for Jadeveon Clowney as well. Did a similar thing when I thought that might be an incomplete pass, but no, it was a strip sack. So good for both of those guys that are able to get that done.
All right, well, it is Week 18, so with a lot of backups playing, there's going to be some random Week 18 All-Stars. Carson Wentz was QB2 on the week, 26.1 points. And then as you see the wide receivers that stood out, Quez Watkins, David Bell, Andre Iosivas, And A.T. Perry here, Lawrence.
Carson Wentz, the 26.1 fantasy points, that's the 8th best fantasy game of his career.
Yeah, maybe it could have helped the Jets this year when they didn't have a quarterback.
Possibly. But just think of all the games that Carson Wentz played and all the times people have started him in fantasy. This meaningless game as the Rams' backup quarterback against the Niners is his 8th best game of his career. That is quite something for Carson Wentz.
Can Wentz start for someone next year?
He at least now can get into a camp and compete, right?
Yeah.
I felt like nobody wanted him to do that.
Like a Baker Mayfield situation, like competing against a Kyle Trask.
You are against exactly a non-first round developmental quarterback.
Yep.
Let's see who wins.
Yeah, Wentz v. O'Connell type of situation.
There we go. I like that. Now we're talking.
And Quez Watkins too, 23 fantasy points in place of A.J. Brown. He might have to be a factor depending on what's going on with A.J. Brown.
Yeah, and some sleepers for next year. A.T. Perry caught 4 touchdowns and just 12 receptions this season. He had a career-high 20.3 fantasy points. The postseason is upon us, and we're getting it started with 3 huge wildcard games this weekend. It all starts with a Saturday doubleheader. The Browns head to Houston to face the AFC South champs, then streaming exclusively on Peacock. Tirico and the Dolphins go to the cold in Kansas City, facing Patrick Mahomes. We're going to break. When we're back, it's last call. Wildcard round lines coming your way.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest RotoWorld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.